I remember Jane collapsing into my arms, and I held her for a second, but she was in the middle of packing because, again, she was going home. At some point, her roommate came in and she explained that there was a death in the family and that she would have to be leaving for a while. And then, literally, it felt like it was all less than 10 or 15 minutes. Her best friend, who also went to UCLA, actually lived in her neighborhood, actually met us downstairs and then went home with her to Northern California. And I didn't know this at the time, but Jane's sister's death would come to define a significant part of my time at UCLA, so my first 2 years of college. And a lot happened all at once after this. So remember, this was right before finals. It was right before finals. Jane's youngest sister was graduating from high school and was hoping to join us at UCLA the next year. And Jane's parents' wedding anniversary, all at the same time. And I remember this because I saw it as my kind of obligation, given that Jane was literally my best friend in the world at the time, to just be there for her, support her however possible. Like, I just remember sending her texts and telling her, you don't have to reply. I just need you to know that I'm here for you and that I'm thinking about you. And I remember spring quarter, undie run, which always happens Wednesday of finals week. Jane had been back, and then her younger sister and her younger sister's friend joined us. And so I got to meet, more of Jane's family. And I had actually already met her father during the freshman summer program. He took us out for dinner once. And for all intents and purposes, and I'll get more into this without getting ahead of myself, but I felt like I had gravitated towards, I don't know, almost like there's a reason why I chose the friends that I did. It was really crazy how many of my friends were also from Northern California. We just had dreams and ambitions of like taking over the world, and we would sit, I know I've already said this, but like that's the kind of friendship that Jane and I had. And actually, I don't know that I'll ever have a friendship like that ever again, to that level. The things that we talked about, it is noisy. Sorry. The conversations we had, like just the level of passion that we would have. Like, I've said this already, but people would think that we were fighting, and we would talk for 2 or 3 hours, and we always scheduled at least one breakfast, and then several dinners throughout the week, because that was our friendship. Very, very close bond. And actually, I'm going to take a moment to tell another story. And this, I've just realized, actually is kind of important. I don't think I've already told this story, so I'm going to say it kind of briefly. Again, there's a lot that happens right here. But people always thought that Jane and I were hooking up, even though I was really confused about my sexuality, and Jane had no problem, hooking up. And again, that was the basis of our friendship. I know I've already said that. Myself and our other friend, who I'll remember the pseudonym that I gave her because she also comes back up in the story. But that was the basis of our friendship, right? But one night during the freshman summer program, Jane was really drunk, and I was trying to like walk her back to her dorm room, and that's all I was trying to do. And Jane was kind of like no, this is not going to happen. And then I was like, oh, okay, this is what you think. So we drunkenly had a heart to heart in the middle of Reber Circle. If you know the UCLA campus, it's one of the it's one of the residential halls. And it's, anyway, in the middle of that, underneath the palm tree, we had this drunk heart to heart where we basically agreed and made a pact that we were going to be friends, and that's all we were going to be. So I mentioned this because obviously the pact didn't last, but again, I'm getting way ahead of myself. So, Undie Run night, Jane gets too drunk, loses her phone, and we lose track of her. At some point, I literally, like, it was, again, freshman year Undie Run, I had offered up my dorm to have the party in because we all had our apartment set up for next year, and I knew I wasn't going to be living on campus again, so I was like, fuck it, right? So Jane got lost. Again, her sister and her sister's friend ended up finding her. I had my own stuff to take care of. And all I remember is that they left. They went back to Northern California without saying bye to me. And I was really buttered about that for a while. And again, not the biggest issue because we were only going to be living together next year. So anyway, I'll get to that momentarily. Well, no, it'll come up later on in the story, but just to wrap up this segment. So that was the ending of my freshman year of college. And I kind of don't really see it as an end per se, because I knew I was going to be there for summer, and I knew I was, I had my group of friends, I had my group of circle. It was pretty small, but like, again, I did not at this point have a relationship with my family back in San Francisco. And I skimmed over all of that because the nature of our fallout happened before my high school graduation. And it's not any of anybody's business. All families have their issues, and we are now stronger and better than ever before. So I don't want to reopen wounds that there's no need to reopen them. But again, for all intents and purposes, UCLA was my home, right? I wasn't going anywhere because, I had nowhere else to go. So just going to throw this out there before I end this. When people say, like, people who move in back home with their parents are losers. So first off, that's if you have the privilege of moving in back home, because not everybody has a place that they can or that they feel safe going back to for whatever intents and purposes. There's not always that plan B. Just want to throw that out there. So in the next part, I will tell you about summer classes, getting my wisdom teeth taken out, and what that had to do with the party of the summer.